Hi, my name's Paul Nyman, and in this clip, which is part of the Getting the Most of Your Recruiter series, we're going to look at how you can maximize the relationship with the recruitment company that you're engaging with. Ultimately, this is about you being able to find the best role as speedily as possible with the minimal effort, ironically, but the maximum output. The minimal effort is achieved by you identifying the best opportunity where you can put the right information to the recruiter. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to share some of that with you over the next couple of minutes to enable you to be as successful as possible when you're working with the recruiters. I've been working for 25 years in recruitment, and over that period of time I've operated both as an internal recruiter but also for 20 years running my own recruitment company. And in that period of time I've interviewed about 25,000 people. I look at literally hundreds of CVs probably every week. And so a perfect link in to all of that, this series, how to make the most of your recruitment relationship with your recruiter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some insights about a little bit about how recruiters work, a little bit about some of the things that you can do really quickly just to enable that to move forward efficiently, but also a little bit about the type of expectations that you should have from the recruitment relationship you have with your business. So without further ado, let's look at how recruiters work. So every day a recruiter will be positioning and posting roles in a variety of places. They might be on industry specific websites, they could be in, some people use LinkedIn, it could be that they're headhunting roles, it could be they have a database. In terms of that, there's thousands of pieces of information that are coming in every day, and some recruiters might be dealing with up to 100 CVs on a daily basis. As a consequence, there's a lot of information that's coming their way, and some of that information will go into the head and some of that information will go into their database. Their database therefore carries a lot of data, insights and knowledge, not just about their whole business, but actually about you. Some recruitment companies will hold that data in a positive way in order to enable them to understand you as a candidate, how you have performed in the past, and also potentially what you've looked for in the past and how you progress your career. And therefore that information can be really, really insightful in terms of how you have performed in the past, but also the style of relationship that you built with your recruiter historically. Conversely, it can also give an insight in terms of your past performance, maybe a way in which you could behave in the future. So if you've sent a CV in but then been uncontactable and it's been very difficult to reach you, that recruiter may already have an awareness that you could be a little bit actually short-termist in your approach. And that itself could affect your relationship at the very outset of your contact with a recruitment company. So as a quick recap, recruitment companies deal with massive volumes of information. They have to screen information really quickly. I probably screen a CV make a decision on a CV anywhere between 3 and 30 seconds. And that's because we're professionals at what we do, we understand what we're looking at, and we work in this market all the time. But ultimately, we come under a lot of pressure from clients to often move the role forward. We're always asked the question, how soon do you want to fill the role? And the answer is always yesterday. So recruiters live in a very pressured environment. So making their job easier will enable you to be more successful at finding the role from them. What can you do to achieve that? Number one, have a really clear CV. Despite hybrid working, put your home address on your CV. I believe if your home address is on your CV, it allows the recruiter to pinpoint really quickly where you're based. And hybrid working, whether it is a day in the office a week, a day in the office a month, or 4 days in the office a week, enables that recruiter to identify if they're not going to waste your time and maximize the speed at which things can move. There's been a tendency just to put our email address or our LinkedIn address, which purports to identifying where we live, but have your address on there really quickly. Create a clear CV. Show your business that you're working in, show your responsibilities and also your achievements with some of your outcomes and the personality of you as an individual in your CV when you're talking about some of your outside interests. I do have a separate vlog on this, so check it out in terms of the information about how to build your CV. Make your CV really clear. Be sure to have accurate information on your CV that is clear, concise, and, I'll be very frank, truthful. If a recruiter identifies information which is not truthful about your CV, actually what they will then do is dismiss you. If they present your CV and a client identifies information which is not truthful about your CV, that then tarnishes the relationship with the recruiter, and the recruiter may equally take a negative view of yourself. We all like to, and I accept this, we all like to sometimes fluff up our CV and make it sound a little bit more exciting. But practically, being candid and honest about what you have achieved and where you have been involved in projects within the achievement section of your CV will enable you to build a closer relationship of trust with your recruiter. That's the most important thing that you can do. Be clear with your recruiter about geography of where you want to live. Be clear with your recruiter about your salary. Do not embezzle your salary details. The number of times I've dealt with individuals who've presented me a CV with a salary on it, and then we get a new number which is sometimes actually lower than the original and sometimes massively higher than the original, brings into question the trust of that candidate in the eyes of the recruiter. With my experience, I've actually dealt with individuals who present to me a case where their salary has been increased 3 times in the case of a year. But because I know their boss, I know their boss would never have given them 3 salary increases in the case of a year. And finally, if you have particular requirements that you don't want to be involved in, for example, you don't want to work in a meat industry, or you don't want to work in a drinks industry, or you don't want to work in the smoking industry, for example, be clear with the recruiters the reason why. Don't hold this back and reject an interview later on, but be clear to the recruiter, because then you save them time and you make their job easier. But what you'll also do is make your job easier, and you'll make your sourcing of your next role far simpler. Moving forward, when you're in the market, tell the recruiter that you're in the market, tell the recruiter that you're active, send them a note, actually have a phone call with them when you can get hold of them. If your circumstances change, that you've secured a role, you've had a pay increase, that you've had a promotion, drop a note through to your recruitment partner. Tell them. If you share this information with them, they will update their insights and their understanding of your situation, and then they will approach you about opportunities and roles which are relevant to the level that you're operating at. If a recruiter has in excess of 10, 20, 30,000 candidates within their database network, it's going to be really hard to update all of those. So if you update the recruiter with your latest circumstances, they should update their system and therefore approach you with relevant roles. We all know that candidates get really frustrated when you're contacted about a role that is irrelevant. But updating the recruiter about your current situation will really, really help you be notified about roles that are right for you, opportunities that are going to progress your career, and actually the chance for you to move your career forward. The final piece, which is actually the first piece, is when you apply to a role and you send your CV to a recruiter, keep a log of all that information. So when that recruitment company rings you up and asks you to talk about your situation in the background of the role that you've applied for, you know the role you've applied for. The most frustrating question for a recruiter is, oh, what's the role I applied for? The basis of that question illustrates that either 1, you're disorganised, 2, you're not particularly interested in the opportunity, 3, you're not focused on your career search, or 4, anything will do. And if any of those pieces apply, a recruiter worth their salt will judge you immediately about how you're taking your approach to your career, which may apply equally to the approach that you'll take to your work. As a consequence of that, that will have an impact on whether they put you forward for a role, because they may not trust your ability to perform at an interview, because you're not really able to perform at a simple question session with themselves. My final reiteration here is that a good recruiter who knows their stuff will be acting as a first interview for you in your next career step. So build your relationship with that recruiter. A good recruiter will be able to sponsor you into an organisation and get you into a business that will take you forward in the future. So build a relationship with that recruiter. And finally, a good recruiter who understands you will work really hard to get the best deal for you. And it'll be the best deal for you, which will be the best deal for the client. And they'll give you the advice around that piece. So trust that recruiter. And that will come from you understanding the recruiter, but also the recruiter understanding you. Recruitment is not a short-term solution, and whilst it can happen quickly, it should take a period of time to build the trust and the understanding. But if you're looking for a quick job and a quick solution without putting any effort in, the recruitment company that you're working with will probably struggle to give you long-term career satisfaction. I trust this has been helpful as part of the Getting the Most Out of Your Recruiter series. There are other clips in the series.